Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third webinar. We're getting really good at these, aren't we? We would like to start off by talking about Pet Poison Prevention Month. This month, as March, is Pet Poison Prevention Month. If you have a pen and paper, it's a really good idea if you could take down a couple numbers if you have pets, just so that you know what the pet poison hotline numbers would be to call if you are experiencing an emergency. So the first one is Pet Poison Hotline. It's 1-855-764-7661. I'll make sure these get in the notes with us later too. And ASPCA is 888-426-4435. And so, you know, if you ever have a pet poison emergency, you're going to be asked to call one of those hotlines and describe what's happened to your pet. And they will assist you in recommendations as to whether this is very simple, do this, or it's, you know, an emergency and get your booty to the closest emergency room. But if that's too far away, then maybe you start something at home. But there is a cost associated with that. And I think the peace of mind that you would get from them telling you whether it's a giant emergency or a little emergency is more than the cost, is worth more than the cost of the bill for that. Just to make sure I would pay. There are several toxins in your house right now that if your dog or cat got into would be considered very toxic. One is a prescribed medication for dogs called carprofen. Onions, chives, leeks, shallots, anything from the onion family is toxic. Vitamin D3, anticoagulant rodenticides like the mouse traps where they eat something. It makes them bleed internally. And if your pet were to eat that bait or the mouse or the rat that ate that bait, they would bleed internally until they died, unless you got some anticoagulants on board for that. Marijuana. There's also another rodenticide that's called bromethaline, and that affects their central nervous system, and they die that way. Ibuprofen, we all have that in our house somewhere, and that is very toxic, makes a big mess of their liver. Xylitol is a sweetener substitute, and it causes blood sugar to crash, and that's not a good thing. Grapes and raisins can cause toxicity in animals. There's no rhyme or reason for why it affects one way versus another one the other way. It's just a weird thing they found. Doing pet poison hotline calls, they started noticing it. It was never even a known fact until they started taking phone calls for pet toxins and realized that their dogs or cats had eaten grapes or raisins. So they added that to the list. And of course, the number one toxic thing in America or anywhere is chocolate. So yes, xylitol is found a lot in many of the peanut butters. It's a sugar substitute, and it's also known by birch sugar. So read your labels carefully. Don't give anything. I mean, sugar's not bad for dogs, so give them some sugar. Any of the solutions that the pet poison hotlines would give you as a remedy for whatever you're doing, a lot of the times it's going to be getting your dog or cat to vomit, and they will advise you on how best to do that, but it usually requires having hydrogen peroxide on board. So if you pack a little first aid kit and try to do that with hydrogen peroxide, some alcohol wipes, corn syrup is a great or maple syrup is a great alternative if your dog is crashing from some blood sugar. If you accidentally got into the xylitol. You also want to have maybe some syringes on hand that you can use to dispense the hydrogen peroxide to them. It's easiest to get down versus trying to get them to lick off of a spoon or a cup. They're not really going to want to drink it. So giving them the opportunity to just take the syringe. And you can pick up an oral syringe from your veterinarian or sometimes even just over the counter at the pharmacy. You're also going to want maybe some rubber gloves in your kit to help yourself not feel icky about having to reach down into their mouth. Some scissors and perhaps any sort of thing bandage-wise that you can use if there is a cut or something where you're going to need to apply a tourniquet. So try to have that on board as well. And I think that's about all I have for Pet Poison Hotline. Any questions on that? Yes, Tractor Supply is also a great resource.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks, Karen, for that. Yeah. And let's get started with Jenny.
Absolutely. Welcome, Jenny. It's Jenny Brown, right? Oop, are you there?
Sorry, I had it on mute. Sorry.
That's okay. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you.
The owner of Bowser Beer.
Yes, which I would also add, alcohol is not good for dogs.
Yes, alcohol is not good
without saying, but you'd be surprised how many people give their dog cocktails and beer.
True, absolutely true. So what drew you to make beer for dogs? Beer for dogs?
It was just one of those kind of crazy things. I was making some pretzel treats and then I thought, what goes with pretzels but beer? And we mocked up some and it just sold, and then that just kind of launched it. So that was in 2008 and it just kind of snowballed after that. But it's not alcoholic. And, along the way we said, we try and educate people too, and just found out how many people do actually give their dogs beer, which is not good. So it just resonated with people because people like to drink with their pets. And as more restaurants and bars opened up to be pet friendly, I mean, it just kind of took off. So, and then just the whole environment of people celebrating with their pets and having parties and social media and everything else. So it just all kind of, we have cigars too. So we have these sausage cigars, so they can have a beer and a cigar.
That's great. So how did you find Dogs on Deployment?
I saw Elisa in an interview, and we had actually made a decision to focus our charity efforts on military pets. And so that just kind of fit with our mission. And, I got in touch with her, and we have a custom label option where we can actually put your pet's picture on the label. So we added that to our custom label options as a charity thing and then we develop the custom labels for the mascots every year. We do the winners and just a lot of in-kind type things. And then we include the little cards with every order that goes out to our retail orders, and just got more and more involved with, and then I decided to become a boarder. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
What drew you to that?
Pardon me?
What drew you to become a boarder?
I mean, my life is dogs. I've always loved dogs, and I just felt it was really something that, I wanted to give back and do. So it worked out. My dog population dwindled from 4 down to 1. And so we took our first dog about 4 years ago, I think. Maybe 3. Anyway.
And how many have you boarded?
I've only boarded 2. They were extended. They're both extended. And just some personal things in my life just, were in between. But so I've had 2. And they were they were about 7 months plus for each of them. And originally had been 5 months, but they were both extended because of their their deployment.
Mhm. Did you find it hard to give them up?
No,
No.
actually the first one, I mean, you go into it knowing that you're not going to keep them.
I know.
But the first one actually, the owner surrendered the pet to us because he just simply couldn't, he was stationed aboard a ship and he had nobody else to take care of it, and he couldn't find accommodations that would allow him to do his duties and take care of the pet. And so
Oh,
he asked us to take it, to adopt it. And my daughter was so in love with the dog, so she adopted him.
so you still get to see them.
Um, Unfortunately, he was hit by a car chasing a ball that hit a hole and bounced out in the street. And so he's no longer with us, but he was a good
Oh,
dog.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
I hate to have sad endings, but anyway,
Yeah.
so.
And the second dog, do you find that you remained in contact with the owner?
No, the second dog, I've had issues with the border. So, I mean, I can speak to those today, and we are no longer in contact
Oh, I
by
see.
her choice. So,
Right. Anything there you would want to warn any of our other boarders
Oh.
about?
I'd love to. Yeah. I mean, just, yeah. Do you want to continue asking questions, or do you want me to just kind of
Go ahead and
Do
and give us some words of wisdom or things to look for.
Well, I have found, I mean, I've taken care of lots of pets in my life too, besides the dogs on deployment. And, the dogs on deployment, pets I've found have some some of their own issues, and many of them come from families that maybe I mean, both dogs I had needed really major leash training. They just were terrible on the leash.
Mhm.
They had gone through many moves. They had been with many families over the different times. There was separation anxiety. They both came with terrible ear infections.
Mm.
And, one of them, she had been boarding with another family. Just the deployment schedules are sometimes so rushed, and they're deployed and they can't always find somebody, and they stick them with whomever. And, so they come in different states.
Right.
There's anxiety issues, and, one of the dogs we think may have been abused because he flinched, and he lived in my closet, my coat closet, for the first couple of days. He wouldn't come out, and we thought maybe it's just separation anxiety, but then he kind of found a spot under one of the beds, and he would not let us approach him when he was there. He got really very,
Aggressive.
growling and baring teeth and everything. So we left him alone. That was his safety spot. And I just wondered, what had happened to him in the past. So, with that, I'm really, we've been talking with dogs in deployment about, instituting some training resources for not only the military people, but for the borders. So if they get a dog that has some issues, that they know how to, where to go to get some resources for it. And I think that's important, because not all dogs come from, highly trained, they don't all come highly
Right.
trained and everything like that.
Yes.
So, so being said, the first dog we had time to do a meet and greet, and he considered, and I considered, and when he came over, we sat down and we went through the contract. And one thing about the contract, I mean, you have to ask the hard questions. You have to ask, what's your limit for for spending, if a vet bill, or what happens if something,
Right.
And that's the thing you really have to hash out. And, sometimes it's hard questions for them to come to terms with, but in terms of their deployment, they may not always be in contact. And so the other thing is just communication. Are you going to be available? Will you be available by email or by text? My second deployment, she was in the military police, and her ability to contact me, from what she told me, was very, very limited. And so there were times when I could not get a hold of her and had to make decisions. And, so that was a problem. And the gist of it is that her dog came with really bad ear infections. He had been staying with another family, and she just literally had time to pick him up and drive him to me. And then she was back on the ship. So we didn't have enough time to sit down and go through the contract. And I regret that, because, he continued to have infections. He came with allergies. She thought it was just because we were in the Seattle area and it was damp, but he had terrible allergies. And when he got to the point where he was limping on 3 legs, I mean, I took him to the vet and they had to do some, we had to have him on, she gave me a bottle of Benadryl that didn't do anything. And so he had ear infections and these allergies. And so I was, had to have him constantly on medication to manage the allergies. And at one point, when I took him off in the beginning, thinking that he was fine, it got so bad that he was limping on 3 legs. And I took him back to the vet. And so anyway, her vet bill was considerably more than what she expected. And being that it was very difficult there were times when there was just days and days and days before I could get a hold of her. So when she came back, I presented her with all the invoices and told her why. And she said she would pay them, but she reneged and has stopped responding, and we cannot get a hold of her. And so I'm out quite a bit of money in vet bills. So that's a downside of it. And even if they agree to pay, that's just one of the risks. And it was considerable because at one point we thought something was in his paw, and they had to sedate him because he was so guarded, he wouldn't let them touch him. And he was, a dog that he was a big dog. And so they had to sedate him heavily so they could work on him, and all that costs money. And being that I couldn't get a hold of her, it was that, or, he was just suffering.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I would caution people about, to really get an understanding of what they're willing to do, and how can we communicate with you. In some cases, in some cases of vet care, it's urgent, and you can't wait days and days for them to respond. So that's my that's my biggest cautionary tale there. And it was that one person, and I don't know why. She promised, I said, look, I'm not padding, here are all the vet bills. And I said, you can pay them in installments. And Dogs on Deployment even offered her a grant to pay for them. And I don't know why, but she's just ignoring everything. So,
well, that's terribly sad. Yeah.
So anyway,
that's a very good point to make there, is that you have to ask the hard questions. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but that's just one thing. If you have them, especially for an extended period of time, things are going to come up. And ear infections are common too, and they may not have caught them when they dropped them off, or they may not have had time to take care of them. You have to take care of that. So they're bound to have, the first dog only had, a little bit. He had some ear infections over the 7 months, and so it was minor, but Eric didn't have any problem paying for it.
So, that's good.
And you might set up just even an account that they can transfer the money like right away, rather than waiting to the end. So
exactly, like just a card for the dog.
Yeah. So that's my, on the positive side, just seeing them being reunited is just, it makes it all worthwhile. And both of them were so thankful. And it's kind of ironic because the woman was very thankful for, having me taking care of them, but she didn't want to pay the vet bills. But just the stress relief. My first board, the pet owner was in charge of all the kitchens on an aircraft carrier. So he had a huge responsibility, and he just had a situation where he couldn't find, and so he was so stressed. And when we came to the picture, he was so relieved. And even the second one, just, she had been trying and trying, and she was just had the dog temporarily someone else, but they were going to be deployed. So, just the relief that they feel that they can get on to their jobs and not have to worry about it.
Right.
Is amazing.
Do you feel like this would be something you would do again?
It is.
Opportunity?
It is. I've just took a little break because I was just
I could imagine I would probably take a break too after that experience.
Yeah. Well, I
And
have some
ev-
erratic work schedules too, so I just want it to be when I have time to be fair, to be there for the dog, so. And,
True.
and their travel extension, I mean, the other thing too is I had vacation plans and, in both cases, they were extended 2 months, which is a considerable amount of time from when you were planning to end your boarding. And,
Mhm.
and the second time, it was like right up against my, my vacation, and I had tickets and everything, and she had to actually drive all the way up from San Diego to get them. And so that was, that's just another contingency thing that if you see, especially if you get word that they're going to be extended, get plan B to get back up,
Right.
which isn't always easy either. So,
No,
but
and having to drive that distance, that's
yeah,
quite a hike.
yeah, and yeah. So, and again, when she came up, she was rushed to get them and get back down because she had very limited time off before she had to be back on the ship.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it's not always ideal.
Right. Any other helpful hints you might have for people considering bordering?
Just I would really look and see, just really you have choice, and if it doesn't feel like a good match, then don't do it. Really
Right.
look at what is going to be, suitable for you. And the problem is, some of these stories just tug at your heartstrings, and you just want to help everybody. But if it's not going to be a suitable match or the time doesn't work, then just you can't, or maybe you can help find somebody. But
Yeah.
if you're in a situation and it's not working out, it's more of a mess. So really be careful when you choose them, and find out as much as you can about the pet and his temperament and that sort of thing. So
Absolutely. Well, hey, Courtney, let's come back to you. Do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions right now, but I do want to just touch on a few points, that
Mhm.
Jenny had made. So one thing that we do always recommend to our service members when it comes to the vet bills is for them to work it out with their vet's office before they leave, by maybe like leaving their credit card on file at the vet office. And then from there, the vet's office usually will make them sign a form saying up to what amount and what type of care are you guys looking at, in that aspect. So that's always something that you can recommend to your service members, of saying, hey, did you happen to leave a credit card on file at your vet's office? So if something happens to Fido, I can take him to the vet's office and they already know what you've approved and haven't approved. So that's
Courtney, can I add to that then?
sure.
Because in my situation, she was based in San Diego. She was up in Seattle for a short term. The ship was returning to San Diego. So her
Mhm.
vet was in San Diego.
So in that
in
instance,
retrospect, I should have had her go with a local vet and put a card in. Yeah.
yeah. And I have, I not familiar with any of the ones that are on the call right now that have done this, but I do know of a couple borders where they take dogs from other states, so they're not next to their local vet. And so in
Yeah.
cases like that, the border will usually make a recommendation of, hey, this is the vet's office I use. Here's their information. If we can use this vet's office, since it's closest to me as the border, and then please can you maybe set up an account with them in advance. That's another option. We can't make them do it, but if we suggest it as a border, then it's always a good thing to at least try to do that. The other thing with extensions is we never want our borders to feel obligated ever when it comes to extensions. So if there's an extension that happens, and it happens a lot right now, if you're not able to take that extension, please reach out to me right away and have the service member reach out to me, and we will work on trying to create new dates for that extension to find a new border that's local to that current border, so we can get that pet transition. We are here. That's what we're here for. We're here to help with those situations, but you guys just have to really communicate with us and tell us, because I don't always hear that the extensions happen until after the fact. And then the border said, oh, I had that dog for an extra 3 months. Oh, okay. I had no idea. So just know we are here to help you with the extensions. If you can accept the extension, great. But if you can't, please reach out to us as soon as you find out so we can start working quickly to find a different boarder that can take the pet during that time. And the other thing would be, you mentioned training, Jenny, so Jenny plays a couple roles within Dogs on Deployment. Besides being a supporter with Bowser Beer and being a boarder, she actually also has just recently came on as one of our board of directors. And so she works with us, you know, behind the scenes and stuff, and she touched on training. We actually are working with a company to do some training stuff that will be virtual, available to our boarders. We just are trying to fine tune all of the last minute pieces before we announce it. But if you keep an eye on our social media pages, and I know our social media person's on here, so she's like, yeah, she said this. But keep an eye on our social media pages, and it will be announced soon once we tidy up all the loose ends as to how that virtual training is going to help. And it's virtual, like through Zoom, not just videos and things like that. It's where you can speak with an actual trainer for some of our pets that are in boarding and whatnot. And it's the basics: leash training, house training. The dog won't stop barking at the door because its owner left. So they're very in tune to what the needs are. So we'll be having that shortly. So that's kind of a cool thing to announce. And I also wanted to remind everyone that our next webinar in April is going to be with Rebecca Edie, who is our boarder who's on here right now. She's going to share about her journey, and she has boarded over 30 dogs, maybe close to 40 by now. I'm not even quite sure where our numbers are. With she hears of an animal needing help and she's like, I'll just take it. I'll take another one. I'll take another one. So we're excited to have her on. And yeah, so I don't have any questions in the chat, Karen. I do want to remind all of our boarders, if you guys ever need anything or have questions outside of this, email me. info@dogsondeployment.org is probably your easiest and quickest, and that comes directly to me. I will also add that right now into the chat. And my last thing that I have to keep reminding all my boarders, because you guys are really great, but please, 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 please make sure that you have the service member deploy their pet to you before they leave, and then accept it on your end as a boarder. It's a two-part thing. Otherwise, it doesn't link your two accounts together. And then it makes it a little bit harder for me to try to help you out when we need to, because the accounts don't get linked together. So just remember, service member deploys their pet to the boarder accepts it then on their dashboard system. All right, Karen, the fun part. I know you're ready for it.
The drum roll, please. The winner of today's webinar is Roxanne Benskowski. Did I say that right?
Good. That was very good.
Oh my goodness. There's a lot of barking in the background.
Yeah, and the
They're
dogs
happy
are too.
Roxanne,
right,
if
everybody.
you can email me at the info email your mailing address, we will get you your swag package sent out.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have, so we heard dogs. Are any of them current DoD dogs?
No, they're not, but I'm supposed to be meeting my very first foster tomorrow.
Ooh, good luck.
Exciting.
Yay.
Well, since
So
we have a
hopefully
couple,
I won't run into half of the problems that Jen had, but
Yeah.
okay, so with that said, does anybody on here, since we have a few minutes, have some guidance for the meet and greet for Roxanne when she meets for her very first time? Anyone?
Yes. Yeah. Just neutral territory. So a park.
Yeah.
Yeah, not your house, not their house, not anywhere that they would associate it as their park. So just a neutral territory.
we do have a place in town. It's an old schoolyard that's fenced in, so I was thinking of doing it there. And then,
Perfect.
and then going for a nice long walk together, so all of the doggies are tuckered out.
Exactly. Yes,
I
that's
would
a great
also I would look and see how the owner has controlled the dog on the leash and everything, or if he's pulling his arm off. You know,
Okay.
to
Yeah.
just see how the dog is reacting, you know, to it.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Oh, this is so exciting. See,
It
these are the
is.
things that make my day, just to hear like a brand new DoD Borders on here, and she's gonna go do her meet and greet this weekend for the first time. Like, to me, I'm like, yes, that's a win.
That's a great, absolutely. All the best. We wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
I just want to say on behalf of Dogs on Deployment, thank you everybody for joining us today. Join us again in April with Rebecca, one of our longtime boarders. You could register on our website. All of the current ones are up there. The May one is up there. The June one's up there. And I think July will be up here shortly because I just confirmed that one. We have lots of exciting things happening and partnerships that we're doing. And it's because of boarders and people like yourself, where we're listening to what you guys are wanting. Pet tips was one of them. So we're going to try to do one pet tip every border webinar as well. But again, thank you guys for joining us. And Karen, any last words?
Not at all. I totally enjoyed this one. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.